All right, Jeff, we're now recording. So today I am talking with Jeff Bogniard and about iFast. And Jeff, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your agency?
Yeah. My name is Jeff Bogniard. I've run an iFast program at PsyCare Incorporated over around Youngstown and Columbiana counties, so Trumbull, Mahoning, and Columbiana counties for the past 10 years. We were looking for a model that we could implement with our existing staff and that provided something that was effective in dealing with some of our more complicated cases. And again, we've been happy with iFast, and so have our community stakeholders. We get a lot of referrals from courts and children's services and internal referrals, as well as from our school-based program as well.
So Jeff, how did you first hear about iFast?
I thought about that. I was researching MST, and there wasn't a way that we could really implement that due to the costs and the caseload size and caps and that sort of thing. I actually heard about it, I think, from a student who had heard about it at one of your existing agencies, and I called Dave Grove, and here we are.
All right. So about when was that you first contacted Dave?
So we started, I think, training and certification in 2013, so roughly 10 years ago. He and Andy provided our initial consultation and training. We worked with them for that year.
Uh-huh. And so got the training, got certified, started using iFast. And so somewhere along the line, you became a big supporter of iFast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a real big supporter,
Mm-hmm.
which we're all very thankful for, grateful for. I mean, so what was it that kind of tipped you over to this, just learning it, using, and then now, wow, iFast is really good stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I really have to say that I don't think there's another model that's really efficient at using kind of the existing services, TBS, counseling, the psychotherapy codes, CPST, that is able to kind of fit into the service array, as it were, and to be able to use existing staff. A lot of my staff are non-licensed, and it provides a model that you can train them up, and I tend to kind of frame it as a sort of a case conceptualization model, that if we understand interactional patterns and we understand the family frames and what they want help with, you really can use this model with the existing workforce, which was a huge advantage for us. I do all the community-based programming, again, in 3 counties that are pretty diverse. So I think it works well with a variety of client populations. We have sort of an Appalachian county, and we have 2 Rust Belt counties where, it's just kind of poor, sort of inner city. So again, it's flexible. It's probably one of the hugest things that it plays to the strength of your provider. And that allows them to play to the strength of the family. If they can be family focused, and get the needed information and understand problems in an interactional kind of way, it helps me as a supervisor being able to construct interventions that are going to get the family the results that they want. You mentioned being a big supporter of this. I feel it is something that at a statewide level we really need to look at, with the changes with Ohio Rise and with there's a commitment to providing in-home services, but that's becoming more challenging. And I really believe that this is probably about the only model that you can do without existing or additional funding sources.
Mm-hmm. So so what you're saying is that it has features that other approaches don't. The
Mm-hmm.
flexibility and how it fits with existing staff and things like that. And you can fit it within existing funding streams,
Mm-hmm.
funding sources. So So that's another way of saying you have found it cost effective.
Yeah, and I mean, I really think, again, other agencies who want to look at this, I'm the program director here for our field-based programs of all kind, traditional case management, as well as the IFAST program. And I couldn't find another one. I mean, you can look at FFT or MST, and they're difficult to sustain without initial startup costs or funding. Generally not from service delivery. I think that was the biggest thing. I needed something that I could begin. I had no money in the bank, and was paying for the training and the consultation with ongoing, service delivery, which was a huge advantage. And I started with about 4 staff. We were pre-pandemic, I think, up to 15 staff. But that's it sort of ebbs and flows.
Uh-huh. I mean, what was going on in the beginning for you to start looking for a family therapy that's evidence-based or evidence-informed? I mean, what was going on in your agency or in the state that was the impetus for that?
Yeah, that's a good question. That I think, historically, when we had really complicated cases, we just didn't have the skill set, to be able to deal with them. So we were referring to places like MST or other in-home providers, and this presented a way that we could, offer the service ourselves. And a lot of times we were already connected as an agency with the family, so not having to change providers in the middle of it was also a huge benefit. But yeah, previous to that, if it was a really difficult case, I just think we struggled. We didn't have the knowledge or the abilities to treat that well.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. I haven't heard anyone quite put it that way. Yeah, that's a good way of sort of framing it. Yeah. And so as you had experience with it and your staff, how was your staff reacting to it?
I think overall it was really good. I have to say that the initial consultation and being focused and having the weekly consultations was really helpful. And in general, you were fighting some of the bad habits of being problem focused or parent biased or too kid focused. So this kind of kept us on track in terms of the problem is the problem, or the interactional pattern is the problem. We need to change that in a way, and it's not it's not something that the parent or the child is doing something wrong. I think it lends itself well to externalizing the problem and a lot of the solution focused sort of things. I think that's probably one of the other biggest things is basic solution focused intervention for non-licensed people with therapeutic behavior services. That's a focus now as defined by the state, and this provides something in the toolbox for them, where historically I don't think we train non-licensed staff in kind of the basics of psychotherapy, say.
A little bit more about that. I'm curious about that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate on it some more?
Sure. I think that it was my experience that we would have lots of problem-focused case managers, or again, they didn't have necessarily the skill set to look at it in a way that was going to be helpful for the parent, and we would lose a lot of families. If you're not aligned, you think of the IFAST treatment steps here, being aligned with a caregiver is a key thing, and to do that, they can't feel blamed or they can't feel like they're a big part of the problem, even though we may be trying to change some of their behaviors or actions or that kind of thing. I think I'm thinking of some of the biggest maxims that I use: connection before compliance. Teaching a parent there's real value in baking cookies with your kid, and there's the therapy. And if you're doing quite a bit of that, sometimes that's the only thing you really need to change that. And I think families, not being connected in a meaningful way was a big part of the problem. We would get stuck in those little vicious cycles with the family and feel, that it wasn't hopeful. I think also, deciding who to work with, where the person who shows up for therapy or brings the kid in or we meet at the house isn't always going to be your agent of change, and being mindful of that, I think, is something that my staff responded well to. get as many releases of information as you can during those first few sessions. Identify natural supports. Questions like, who loves you the best? You ask the kid that, and you get an idea that they are connected to people who may not be there. So I think that was kind of a real revelation to all of us, that it's the grandmother in Texas who checks in once a week on FaceTime has an awful lot of power. So that whole when stuck, add people, I think, is another Dave maxim.
Wait, say that again.
When stuck, add people.
Yeah.
So and we look for
I love Dave's maxims. A lot of wisdom there. Yeah. So, so sounding what you're saying is it's important to get the primary caretaker or to find who's connected to the kid, or if there really isn't one, to help cultivate or strengthen that. But also, it's important for the frontline worker to develop a connection with that caretaker. So there's
absolutely
a parallel process there.
Yeah, another maxim: go to and through power. That primary caregiver may not be your agent of change, but they have to at least give their blessing or identify or agree with who we're going to work with, and being artful and thoughtful about how we can get their cooperation with that. I think that's another huge challenge that I see, that a lot of the families we meet obviously are kid focused, and them realizing they're going to be a big part of the therapy, I think is part of our little elevator speech of how we present this, and that we're going to need your cooperation and time, and we're going to probably want to meet with you without the child around. I think that's a change, I think, for parents, where they're used to dropping them off at the office for a 1 hour and go and Dunkin' Donuts and get a cup of coffee and not be part of the process.
So that's certainly a paradigm shift for the parents. Was the introduction of IFAS a paradigm shift for your workers?
Can you say that one more time?
You're losing me there, Jeff?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
So I asked, I said,
are you here?
I am here. Okay. We're back recording now. We had to pause it there a second. We had a connection issue. So before we had some problems there, Jeff, I think I asked you, I said, you were talking about how traditionally parents want to drop the kid off, go get a coffee, and come back and pick them up while you fix them. And so then adopting and using an IFAS, where it's critical to work with a primary caregiver. So that is a paradigm shift for the families, for the caregivers anyway, the parents / caregivers. So how much was adopting IFAS a paradigm shift for your workers at the time?
I think some of them, and again, particularly the non-licensed staff, where they didn't really have a framework to work from. And actually, when I think about that, I think we had a lot of office-based staff that were sort of used to that, being kid-focused, doing play therapy, and trying to solve family problems with more individual sort of interventions. So I don't know necessarily if it was a tough sell, because I think we saw the results were encouraging pretty early, and that we were excited about it, and that in turn, I think, had families more hopeful and optimistic that they can solve this together. That we need to get, we were roughly 6 months to a year for a case, and with the idea that the family is truly the expert on that, and that if they don't feel in charge or responsible for the change, it's hard to get out of there. They, if they credit our worker too much with, the changes being made, I think they became dependent on therapy. So this was a really great way to have families take ownership of that and realize it really is the simple things. Just having positive connections with your kids really is magical. And once they see that happen, that creates the the hope and the belief that, yeah, we can do this, and we are doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just over the years, I've just observed how some clinicians who are used to working just with individual kids really they're not comfortable working with the parents, with adults, and so they really struggle with that sometimes. But like I say, once they find that they start doing that, they see that they start getting results. And what clinician doesn't like seeing good results? It's, it's kind of self with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're in business for. I think, we're all kind of looking for that, and this provides something that is able to kind of get those whole family kind of results. And then, word of mouth, I think, is another huge thing that we've had several families refer other families. We've certainly been in houses where, the neighbor is one of the natural supports and says, hey, can you come over here? I really like this. So, they may be an ancillary contact to our family, but that was pretty cool to see too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's really gratifying to see that. Are there particular kinds of presenting problems / diagnoses that it works better with than others?
No, I think there's another benefit that you're, bringing to light here, that we're not diagnosis specific. I think, excuse me, if you looked at our caseload, probably the vast majority are the oppositional sort of spectrum or court-involved kids. And so I'm on that thought. We have to also work with the courts in looking at, our program, and them realizing that we need their help to stay involved in a case. Sometimes we get a lot of families that are going to the court and think their kid's going to be locked up for being bad, and that doesn't happen. And so a lot of the families that we're contacting, had thought the kid's going to get some kind of consequence from the court, and the court is simply referring them to a program that is going to provide treatment, and they have to be an active part of it. So I think there's a lot of kind of salesmanship and stuff there, but the vast majority of our cases are, it is just disconnected families with their children. There's a lot of social media taking up time. The kids are now competing with mom's iPhone for her attention, and they have their own iPhone. And I think we've seen a lot of problem behaviors arise sort of out of that. I think we have a lot of kids on the spectrum, and I think that's another sort of caseload niche that we have. Teaching parents the difference between sensory sort of issues, which you're not going to consequence. You're going to look at, part of the interactional pattern there is either add stimulation or take it away. And then you have behavioral stuff, which we would consequence. So, teaching parents to be good expert evaluators of what's going on with their child who has autism. So we have had a lot of cases like that.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned working with the court, or many cases of kids are court involved. What's been the reaction to the court and other agencies you interact with, or schools, children's services, to your use of IFAST?
I think overall it's been really good that we get a lot of cases in the one county from children's services, and a lot of cases in the other county more from the courts, just as a kind of a main referral source. But again, we're back to the benefits of the flexibility of being able to work and really coordinate well with systems level providers and community stakeholders, that sort of thing. So we've kind of been the program of choice, I would say, over here. Again, because we're able to serve a lot more kids because we don't have a capitated caseload. I would say my staff generally has about 25 clients. When you look at some of the other models or IHBT, and they have those caseload cap sizes, it just becomes really challenging.
Mm-hmm.
to be able to see enough clients in a week to pay a living wage sort of thing.
So you're in using IFAS, you're seeing some of the same kinds of families that maybe MST or FFT are seeing, but but with IFAS, your workers are able to have a larger caseload and still be effective.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the things that we've seen with Ohio Rise, where we've just kind of, in some cases, I think, overwhelmed families with more providers or more services. And it's really, the old adage, it's not about, quantity, it's really quality. So we need to be in pace with the family and how much intervention they want. How many times a week do you think we need to come out? Is it once? Is it once every 2 weeks? Is it twice a week? Having the ability to sort of do that and keep pace with the family and not overwhelm them with services, which I think happens with some of the more, intensive kinds of models where you have a caseload of 10. Oftentimes the family doesn't want us there twice a week. We did move away from, we used to have a counselor and a case manager sort of in every house. And I think that's something that we've changed in the past year or so, that it's for similar reasons that a lot of our families didn't know the difference between the case manager and the counselor, and would call the case manager the counselor, and but they would tend to be bonded or connected to one provider perhaps more than another. And also from a supervision standpoint, I think that was always interesting to me, that I could hear about the same case from two different workers and oftentimes get a much different sort of impression of that, which was interesting. So I think having one provider in the house at a frequency that the parent and the family wants streamlines a lot of things and allows us to be more consistent.
Yeah, we found that in our original development research of IFAS, that there was a counselor and a case manager to each family. But the case manager was involved with them more regularly and intensively. And probably the case manager was doing as much therapy, if not more therapy, than the therapist, and thus really being the change agent, the difference maker. I mean, ultimately the parent and the family are the change agents, but the case manager sort of being the catalyst for that to happen. And so with the other,
absolutely, I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that's the piece with case managers. Just kind of by their very nature, they're people person. They want to go sit on the couch and on the client's couch, and you have therapists that have made their whole career out of people coming to sit on our couch in an office environment, and just the ability for the case manager to have a skill set that is therapeutic in a meaningful and an organized way.
So so a lot of this service delivery then is by the case manager. Is what you're saying. And
yeah, we have. I've got a staff of 4, 2 counselors. I'm sorry, a staff of 5, 3 case managers and 2 counselors, and they're the sole provider for the family. We've got to have a diagnostic conducted by one of the counselors, so they're doing that and sort of setting the table and explaining what IFAST is. And they either keep the case themselves and are going to work both sides of that. They'll do the case management function. Or they pass the case off to a case manager. So we call them, get a one and done assessment done. And then, the family understands that the case manager is going to be, their primary worker. A lot of time we send them out together for that initial session at times, if that works.
So it sounds like you're really individualize what you do with the family in terms of how often you go into the home, work with them, who you work with, that you very much individualize it and really rely a lot on what they are wanting themselves. So it's very collaborative and kind of a partnership with the family, especially the parents, rather than imposing it on them some predetermined protocol.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole, ask for what you want. And when the family feels like they're in charge of that process and is setting the pace, I think they feel empowered and they feel, um, again, that they have a real stake in how we're going to do this and how often uh, they think we need to be there. And it's often surprising, that they have a pretty good idea of it. And we just need to listen. We need to ask the right questions and we need to really just find out, what they want help with. Uh, and not giving any interventions or advice for a certain period of time. Probably I would say 5 sessions. We're really not doing a whole lot of intervention, at least in the perfect world. Um, Even though that may be what families are asking about, but being clear with them and saying, we really need to understand the who, what, when, where, why of how this problem is occurring before we can, design anything or help you design anything that might help combat that.
So yeah, I think you have to say in those first 5 sessions, there's something's going on different for the family in that you have this case manager slash therapist coming in and developing this positive therapeutic alliance with family, and that's new for them.
Absolutely. And just they when they feel that we're really trying to understand and not coming from a place of judgment or um, some kind of we're with them, together with them. And I think that is something that they feel and that I think they do understand that we don't want to fling a bunch of here, try this, try this, try that, unless that's what they're asking for. I think that's one of the art forms of just not um, before I give a task for a family, I'm going to be like 95% sure that they're going to accept that and they're going to, know because I've listened to how they frame the problem and what they think will work and why they think the problem's occurring.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a challenge, an ongoing challenge for almost all of our providers. We get stuck in our ways or we have our own top 5 therapeutic things that we try to do. And sometimes we try to shoehorn people into something that's already existing in our framework. But
So the subtitle of the IFAS manual is it's a strength-based common factors approach. So I mean, how do you operationalize that at your agency?
yeah, so I think it does really kind of go down to the basics of having client or your staff resist the writing influence, resist the urge to try to fix stuff, and listen. And I think that's one of the biggest common factors is you're united with the family, you're curious, you're putting them in an expert role. So if I have a staff that can do that and ask good questions in an engaging way, that's probably, I'm going to say almost 80% of it right there. Because the family's going to open the door for you the next time and look forward to you being back. And if we don't have that in some of the initial stages, you get dropout and that sort of thing.
And how do you see being strength-based, how that plays out with your workers and in the services they provide?
Yeah, I think everybody likes a compliment, and if I get one of my staff who's complaining about a mother or a parent, I'm like, you got to tell me something you like about this person. Tell me one thing that you could give them a compliment on, and if they can't do it, I don't. I think we talk about maybe you can't be helpful to this family, but really sort of coaching up and trying to keep awareness of being judgmental. Again, we get families that are abuse situations or a mother that is beating her kids and they had to go to the hospital or something. You still got to be able to help that person and find something that you do like and that she feels like she's not being maligned or that we're going to make the problem worse for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think appreciating so often in cases like that, not almost always. So you have a kid who's been abused, let's say, which is traumatizing, but most likely the abusing parent also has a trauma history themselves that they've never dealt with. And sometimes self-medicated
Yeah.
with substances, alcohol substances.
No, that's a great point, Gil. That I think the IFAST trauma book is really kind of spot on the money, and having families kind of work through intergenerational trauma in some kind of meaningful way. I think that's one of the most hopeful things for me, is seeing families really overcome some horrific situations and feeling like, again, they're the ones that are able to make that make sense, make terrible things, make sense. We had historically, I think, referred to trauma-based therapists or tried to, and almost, let me think about this. I think that I probably suggested it for 100 cases, and maybe 4 took us up on it, that they didn't want to go see somebody else. They didn't want to do EMDR, or they didn't want to have to tell their trauma narrative over and over. And, just somebody within the family system hearing that or making amends is therapeutic in and of itself. And we've seen that in case after case after case, that you have the power to do that as a family and heal and make sense of something that really maybe didn't make sense. It's terrible. There's no way you're going to make it a good thing that happened, but you can also realize that it's not the only thing that's happened in your family, and that you can learn to love each other again. And that turns my crank a lot. I love to see and hear stories when we're effective at doing that. But I can't recommend the trauma-based IFAST book enough. It's outstanding, and it's available on our website.
I appreciate that. But well, I love hear what you're saying. Your experience with this, like, you're so right that so often sort of the common sense practice out there is, oh, you encounter somebody with trauma, which so many of your kids and families that have, you refer them to somebody refer them out. And so what we found is that they don't want to be referred. That they already have a relationship with your IFAST clinician. They don't want to go and see work with another strange therapist now in the beginning, and so you've been having that experience as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that, I think families, I would use the word abandoned, or they had strong feelings about that, hey, we're attached, I don't want to be abandoned by you. So when we had a framework that was simple, that we could discuss with them, that they have the tools in the box to be able to do what they need to do to get past the event, that really was a revelation, and continues to be. I think we often underestimate, sometimes as helping professionals, how much power is just in the simple connections of a family, and basic building block of society. Has been, time memoriam, and here we are facing really unique challenges. I mean, just with social media or other ways to disconnect, the pandemic, the list has gone on, but the treatment's the same, that when they connect in meaningful ways, good things happen.
So it sounds like bottom line is, so the families don't want to be referred out to deal with trauma. They want to see your therapist, IFAST therapist, and so your therapist, case managers using IFAST have been able to effectively work with cases like that and have positive outcomes.
100%.
Great. Now, a few years ago, you were I think the force behind a statewide IFAST conference. You were the one who came up with that idea and really organized it and made it happen. You want to say a little bit about that? What that was about for you?
Yeah, I think, and to start off with, we should do that again. We should set that as a goal, and I think we've talked about that. But I think it's great to get around, other agencies. IFAST is used in such a wide variety of environments. We've got substance abuse inpatient. We did a training at a residential hospital. just how other agencies are using that and using the supervision and just kind of building teams. It's great to share that. It's great to be around other people that do this kind of work. It was a real, privilege, I think, to meet the team down there at Nationwide Children's. They hosted us. The program there is the IFAST program is the black hole because the families go in for treatment. They don't ever pop back up in the hospital, and they kind of get fixed. So it's a compliment, and they run a great program down there. And I think the more we could get this out, I'm excited that we have a 20 county agency that's going to be becoming part of IFAST, integrated behavioral. So that's a huge thing. And I think when you see agencies of that size making the choice to use IFAST as a model, that tells you an awful lot. That they have the resources, they have the ability to run anything, including some of the other treatment models. And for them to pick IFAST, I think they recognize certainly the benefits of it. And if we can all sit down again together, I think that would be a great day.
Yeah, that was, what was that, 2015 or? Remember what year?
I think it was 2016 or 17, somewhere in there. It's been a while.
It was an all-day conference. It was a lot of fun. It was really really a positive experience to get people from different agencies around the state who were certified in IFAST and share their experiences and to learn from each other. Yeah, I think we're due for another one of those here real soon.
And I think as provider agencies, we really need to sort of stick together with that and get some good, messaging and organization and lobbying at sort of a state level that, I really feel like IFAST is the answer to a lot of the state level problems that they want to solve. It's not going to be in a more restrictive or expensive, model. We need something that we can take to the masses and it's effective, and you're using your existing workforce. There's not an agency, in the state, I think, that doesn't struggle to hire and retain, and that this provides an avenue to provide good care. I'd love to see research at a an MCO or otherwise level of the results of IFAST in terms of episode of care. How much was the drug spend? How many sessions? And I think we would do extremely well with that when compared to either other treatment models or just kind of the treatment as usual model. I know it. I would love to see the data that would confirm that.
Yeah. Well, also I'm thinking about it. Might mention that it's been a couple of years now that we formed an LLC, IFAST LLC, and you are now an official member of the IFAST management team.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm glad that we took that step, and I think that's an important thing to get the model to the next level. It would allow us to contract with various MCOs or just to have a structural organization around it and something that keeps the model going forward. Beyond our lifetimes. I would love to teach up a whole new vanguard of providers in this. And I think that's another thing that I just see is when we train staff, they do get excited about this because they feel that it's helpful and they know what they're I'm doing something that's powerful. So I think we do need to organize, and that it's been a pleasure working with you guys. I've learned an awful lot over the years, and would say, I'm that quintessential. I sat in the office and did a lot of therapy for the first 15 years of my career. And the last decade was, the first time, I had gone out and done a home visit on a regular basis, and just the power of that and having, again, just practitioners getting excited about that and us having something formal to present to agencies. We've done a good job, I think, in terms of staying organized and staying focused on bringing the model out to people and agencies that need it. It provides a lot of solutions. Really, that's I'm sitting here talking, and that I had a program that has been up and running for 10 years, and I didn't get any extra funding for that. So that's that speaks in and of itself of its cost effectiveness and the ability to hire and retain staff and keep it going. There are not too many MST programs that are there for 10 years.
No. And then and that can sustain it using just Medicaid funding,
Mm-hmm.
whereas IFAS can be.
Yeah, that's and
for people who watch this, say, in addition to Jeff's clinical experience and expertise, he brought and brings to the IFAS team a skill set of administration and management skills that the rest of us are not as strong in. And Jeff is a difference maker in that regard, a big asset to IFAS. Jeff, is there?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a complementary relationship. You guys are, you're the gurus. You're the sort of the founding fathers of this, and it has been a pleasure to work alongside you guys. And I do think that we make a good team, and we have different strengths, and that's an awesome thing.
Yeah, I'd say so. Sort of like the Beatles.
Right. Exactly. And jumping back to that IFAS conference, I want to say, that was the first time that you guys had all been together in the same room for many years, I think. And so that was good to see. And then
it's been a while, yeah.
Glad that occurred. I think that helps.
Well, we met, used to meet at my house, in fact, like every other week as we were working on writing the original IFAS manual. So we saw each other a lot, and also like the Beatles, we had our differences of opinion, but we came through it. We stayed together, whereas they did.
Right.
Before we wrap up here, Jeff, is anything I haven't asked you that we haven't covered that we should?
I don't think so. I think we've covered a lot. I think, one thing that kind of comes to mind is, when you're going to launch this or bring the services out, make sure that you have stakeholders that understand what we do and why we're different, and really sort of pave the road to your referral sources, and making sure that they have and understand, we can meet your needs. We can help you with the clients and the families that you have, whether you're children's services or a court system. We get a lot from hospitals as well, from like the psych hospital. They're going to drag their kid in there and hope that he gets fixed in 10 days or less. And, them understanding that we have something that can work with families on an ongoing basis. We'll bring the services to them, but we need their help. So I think that's kind of just one of the other, big things. I think that if you're going to implement IFAST, you really have to have good relationships with the stakeholders and your referral sources. And again, they have to have a pretty good understanding. I'm coaching up probation officers and saying, this is a family-centered model, and that your involvement is going to be needed. And I think that's one of the most critical things. We're actually kind of in a little bit of a struggle where we have lots of court referrals, but it's sort of hard to close on them if they don't understand, they're going to be, part of that change, or an active part of it. I think we have a lot of, families that just still feel like, the probation officer sees the need for the service, but the family has to see the need. And that's the difference between they show up, stay engaged in the program, and we don't get traction with them.
Well, I just thought of what you're talking about now, gets at one of the other common factors we emphasize is systems collaboration. So how important it is to work collaboratively because pretty much most all your families are involved with other systems, whether it's court or children's services or the school system, or all of them. And so trying to get everybody working together on the same page is really important.
Yep, it's the key to having a case to start with.
Yeah.
But again, I can't say enough about IFAST. I'd be happy to talk to anybody about the model and about how we use it. And Again, I think that it's a benefit to any agency that adds it into their survey. They're going to experience success with families, and they're going to have a better trained staff, because they're able to do something that really does help, and they feel that they know how to do, that they have some mastery over.
I think one last thing we hadn't really talked about, that's somewhat unique to IFAST as an evidence-supported model, is that we, in terms of certifying, it's a train the trainer model essentially. So we're certifying supervisors, not necessarily agencies. So that
That's a good point.
So that, because you do have turnover of your workers from time to time. You have to hire new staff. So you're the ones that train them in how to do IFAST. You don't have to ship them off to one of us, originators of IFAST, to train them up, which would be added expense. So once you are certified in IFAST as an IFAST supervisor, you are the one who trains new staff and provides that ongoing supervision.
Yeah, I think that's a great benefit to the model as well, being able to kind of be self-sustained. I would say I think ongoing consultation is a great thing, even though you don't have to have that. I think I recommend that. And we've talked about bringing back to our agency. I miss riffing on cases with Dave or Andy, and just it's great to get a fresh set of eyes and a different perspective on things. But I can't say how much I enjoyed the consultation process. It was a lot of fun. I think that's the thing that stands out. These are really tough cases, and I think we were, nervous about what are we going to do, and learning the model and then applying it with the support for consultation was a fantastic experience.
Yeah, what you're saying reminds me. We do have research and a publication showing that. I mean, you talk ongoing consultation is nice, but we have research showing that it's not necessary. That those agencies that have not had ongoing consultation from an IFAST trainer do just as well as an agency that has some additional consultation beyond initial certification.
That is interesting. Yeah. Again, we're back to flexibility, and that how each agency implements it really is up to them in terms of if it's going to be outpatient, whole agency wide. But I think our supervisors have confidence that they can train, other practitioners, and that's an awfully important thing.
Yeah. Well, I think we've pretty much covered the waterfront here. Don't have anything else. Maybe we should wrap it up here.
That sounds great. I appreciate spending time with you today, and I hope that this was helpful. And again, if anybody wants to reach out to me, you can probably find me on LinkedIn or via the website, our IFAST website, which goes over the model and pricing options and those kind of things. And we'd be happy to speak to new agencies and hopefully expand the model across the state.
You mentioned
thank you for your time, Gil.
Yeah, you mentioned the website. I'll put that in the description of the video when I upload it. But yeah, it's been fun chatting with you today on Zoom. Thank God for Zoom. And thanks for taking your time and sharing your thoughts and expertise. I'm gonna stop recording here and just stay on for a few minutes, Jeff, before we end it today.
Okay.
All right.